And we are live. What's going on Facebook and YouTube Live? It's your boy Billy Wroe of the First Row and my lovely, lovely co-hosts.
Taralyn Michelle here of TaralynMichelle.com and the Grind to Find podcast. Y'all, oh, it's going to be good tonight. It's
Ooh,
going to
let's
be
go
good
down. And
tonight.
I'm already amped up.
Right. We are going to be discussing occupational hazards. I have to say, before we even jump right into it, I really appreciate the love that you guys have shown during the time that we have been doing this show. I mean, Billy and I, we're always having these deep conversations. And I mean, this is like daily. We talk most
Mhm.
days, several times throughout the day. And this has been going on for years. And so then for Billy to say, well, hey, I would really love it if this is something that we could get together and do. And then for us to do it and then to receive the type of love and support that we've gotten from the first episode on all the way up to what is this, 12, Billy?
This is 12. Yeah, I believe.
This
Yeah, this is 12.
this is 12. So I just had to pause for the cause and say just thank you guys so much for the love. Thank those of you who have decided to join us up here on stage. Thank you for your comments, suggestions, all of that. We sincerely appreciate it. And guess what? It is only getting better because we listen to comments and feedback. And I don't know if Jose Soto is on yet. Soto, you have spoken. Soto is always like, no, whenever we get ready to leave. Well, we're going to be talking about some things that we have coming up, but just know that we listen to you guys and we definitely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to tune in. So,
So,
with all that
topic.
being said, topic occupational hazards. Give me the tea, Billy. Give me the tea.
Whew. All right. So, as we were talking about a little bit before the show, for me, the occupation that all of us have is the occupation of life, living life. And when it comes to occupational hazards, it's not so much the things that we encounter in life, but the people that we encounter in life, and really the necessity or the urgency that we should have in
Mhm.
removing those associations to people who have little to no value in our life. And I don't mean um, discounting people because they don't have maybe the financial means that you have or that they don't have the material things that you have. I mean, the people who bring drama to your life, the people who are the naysayers, the people who just want to be there for the celebration but are not there for the other aspects of support that life may need. That's what that this topic means to me on the occupational hazards point. What about yourself, Taylor?
When I heard occupational hazards, I thought of fillers. It's kind of like you
Mm.
go to make a dish and you don't want to spend the money to put all the good stuff in there. So you put a filler in the middle to stretch it out, you know?
Right.
So I kind of,
Add some water to that.
there you go. And so it's all supposed to be cornmeal, but you put some flour in that. That's a completely. So I thought about that because I think about that the same way when it comes to relationships. There are a lot of different people that we may have within our life that occupy space. Maybe it's because we can justify the space that they occupy because maybe there's history. We know them, we go way back. It could be because of a connection, because of someone else. But at the end of the day, other than them just being something that's constant, a body that's always being there, this is not someone that's offering any value in terms of spiritual support, emotional support, expansion of vision. These people are literally just taking up space. And when I think about fillers, I think about if a filler is in a space and it's filling it and it's taking up space from something that would be substantial or meaningful in my life, then how really am I allowing myself to grow? Because when you pluck things out of spaces, when you take fillers out of those spaces, then now that space is open for something else. It's either going to be filled by another person of value, or the filler for that space may be you challenging yourself to grow in a certain area where you've never been put outside of your comfort zone to do that before. So that's what I think about, how having those fillers within your life, that could be an occupational hazard because it's either going to stop you from growing or keep a space occupied where something that could really be meaningful in your life
Right.
could possibly come in and fill that space instead.
Yes. Ooh, fillers. I've had quite a few fillers in my life, and
Uh,
I'm glad I'm now, they say quality over quantity.
mhm.
And now the space that relationships occupy in my life are only quality relationships. They're it is the requirement. It is the standard. It is not negotiable. It is not optional or optional. It's not something that we can compromise on.
Yeah.
There is a level of quality that is required in the relationships that I hold that makes honestly all of my relationships just some of the most amazing experiences I have in these relationships. I was actually having a conversation with a friend yesterday, and she's in the process of reading the book Fire Your Job, Hire Your Passion.
Mhm.
And she got to a space in the book and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I really needed to hear that." And then she turned around and made a secondary comment that said, I feel like while I'm reading this book, that it is very reminiscent of the conversations that you and I have naturally. That level of quality, like for somebody to feel like they're having a normal conversation with you in a book that you were very intentional about
Yeah.
creating the content for, it goes to speak to the level of quality of the relationship, not the level of quality of the book. You should be putting a certain level of quality in your book, but the level of quality of the relationship that this person and I have. And it's like, I only want relationships that I can have conversations like that in. I mean, granted, there's always the how's your family. You and I have the how's the family doing, how's the grandbabies doing. We have those general conversations,
Mhm.
but just like when First Row had intersations, it's about what's deeper. How do we go deeper beyond just the cordial? How are you doing? Okay, we'll catch up soon and never catch up.
Mhm.
So this occupational hazard about letting go of those relationships. Hey, Gina, um, it really is something that is very prevalent in my life. And I think about even like with Gina. Gina and I have known each other since first grade.
Mhm.
Um, to keep a relationship, because when we was growing up, they were like, "Hey, don't get too attached to these friends because a lot of them ain't gonna be around
Mhm.
later." But to
Yeah.
have a friendship that goes from first grade to the present, like what you're like 5 or 6 years old when you're in the first grade. I'm 41
Yeah.
now. That's a 35-year friendship. To have
Yeah.
that type of longevity, it has to come with quality, because other than that, you're going to miss out when you're spending time just putting these filler relationships in. You're going to miss out on
Yeah.
those high quality relationships.
And that brings to mind a question because I agree. I feel like at this space in my life, if you're within the inner circle, well, first of all, if you think about the bullseye and the concentric circles that come with that, right? I used to have situations where people were slotted within certain rings of the circle. And now I really
Mhm.
only want the bullseye. I really don't, every now and again you'll have some folks that you will just meet. So those people are acquaintances. I can't give them the designation of friend just yet because I don't know them like that. So then that's what would put them in some of those outside circles. But that brings to mind a question. When we talk about the quality of these relationships, what are some of the things in your mind that stick out that make for the foundation of a quality relationship, one that wouldn't fall into the category of being an occupational hazard? And before you answer, I know one of the things that for me that is super huge is consistency and communication. And let me be clear about that. You and I, we both have our businesses that we're running, being authors, work that we do, families. We have those things, multiple relationships with other friends and things like that. However, there's a level of respect between you and I that if either one of us reaches out and the other one's not available, we'll still at least acknowledge that A, saw you, can't talk to you, get back to you whenever. I think that something so simple as that speaks to where somebody's mindset is. To
Mm.
me, it speaks to what circle you're in, which ring in the circle you're in, honestly. Because if I'm dealing with somebody, right, and I'm speaking to you, that's not saying that if I send it, because we communicate in all types of ways, whatever
Right.
way I choose to reach out, right? I don't expect that you have a wife. I don't expect for me to reach out to you for Billy to just be like within 30 seconds, ding, ding, ding. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, if I do reach out, let's say that it's a busy day for you, I reach out at 9 a.m. and I don't get a reply from you till 6, at least it's a reply. Say, hey, I was busy. I get with you when I can, or you know what I'm saying? But there are some
Right.
people who want to have a certain degree of relationship with you that they don't even have enough respect to
Mm,
acknowledge that you've made a connection, or to even let them know. Well, nowadays you can see if somebody read something. So that's another thing. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
I think there's something like that, just basic, with some type of consistency for communication that shows care. I think there's something that simple is something that is a big deal for me. What about for you?
Mm. I agree with what you said as far as having consistency. But for
Mhm.
me, it's the consistent behavior has to be consistently truthful.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
it's really hard to have a deep relationship with somebody if you can't tell them the truth and they can't tell you the truth.
Hmm.
Um, my wife and I, we struggle with this from time to time because sometimes the way I present the truth
I know.
is not receivable.
Listen,
Trying
so
to
he's
think of a
eyes
nice way
got
to
big.
say it.
I'm like,
Right.
yeah.
It's not receivable. And I can understand that and I can appreciate that. Um, but at the end of the day, I still have to be able to speak my truth. And a lot of times, even when friends are in disagreement, a lot of times the truth is that they are both interpreting the experience differently from their own perspective.
Absolutely.
Um, and so that's why for me, when it comes to if you're going to be a true relationship, a true friend, or within my inner circle, it's something where we got to be truthful for. I remember at one point in my life, I was super upset about a particular situation.
Mm.
And I was having this conversation with a really close guy friend of mine, and we're talking and we're talking. And he's like, "Yeah, okay, I hear you." He's like, "Yeah, so um, that's not a viable solution. Like, I get you're upset, I get you're mad, I know you're angry, but the solution that you're using that's coming from this space of anger or this emotional space of anger is not the solution."
Hmm.
And he was just like, he kind of sat there with me and let me sit with that. And I was like, yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, his obligation is not to agree with me as my friend.
Right.
His obligation is to really be a secondary mind, a whole nother mind that's added to this problem that I have, to be able to look at it, assess it from a non-emotional standpoint because it's not his particular issue, and
Hmm.
say, hey, Billy, this is the right solution, or this solution that you're coming up with that you're saying is your game plan. That ain't a good plan. And so I
Yeah.
have a lot of people in my life that speak to me in that regards.
Yeah.
But another thing about being truthful from my perspective, and my wife is actually getting really good at this, is when I'm coming to people, being very clear as to why I'm coming to them. So with our little treat that we have for our outro, I was talking to my wife and I sent it to her and said, what do you think about this? And she came down and she's like, are you asking me what do I think about it as it is? Are you asking me what do I think about it as what I would add or take away? Or how are you asking me? And so that gives me an ability to be truthful about, hey, look, I'm not really coming for critique. I'm more like, do you like it? Yes or no? Or I know there might be some things that I could fix on it, but do you like it? Yes or no? And
Mm.
that gives us that clear communication to continue to foster that depth of our relationship. Because when you're married, you got to continue to dig. It's not about, oh, well, we got married and now we stop here at this plane. No, you got to continue to dig to deepen that relationship. So,
I like that she said that, because Chastity is just naturally surgical. It's just naturally. She doesn't even have to try not. She couldn't try not to be. It just is what I mean. But that's really cool about her. I love that. That's a great quality. I agree with that. The truthfulness is so important, because that's one thing that I find interesting. I remember some years ago having friendships that were friend quotations, call them friendships, but they were so superficial in
hmm,
that in order for us to be friends, there was a certain frequency, if you will, that everybody, it was an unsaid agreement that everyone made to be on the same frequency, which meant that you only spoke within certain parameters. Everyone was clear about what should and shouldn't be said, even though it was never said what should and shouldn't be said. It was just you kind of get to know each other, and it was more about being each other's yes woman, keeping the other person happy and keeping the other person comfortable. And I remember being in situations like that where, and the most basic example could be if we're all getting ready to go out, and one chick is wearing something that's really kind of weird. You know, she can have her own style or whatever, but you going really, really to the left, and ask, well, how does this look? And instead of people genuinely saying, I'm not
Nah.
feeling it. I don't think that's hot. I don't think that's it. Maybe watering down it. And I've, in full disclosure, this was in the lost decade. I'd have to say the 20s. I call the 20s the lost decade.
The lost decade.
Yeah, that's the lost. This is back then. This is nothing recent. But I think about those type of superficial relationships, and you understand when you talk about the lost decade why it would be that way then. People are not sure of who they are. There's still a degree of trying to be accepted, whether they will admit it or not. But fast forward to people being 40 and over and having those same types of interactions and relationships go along to kind of get along. I think that that's how these occupational hazards come about. And then once you're a little bit older, the types of things that happen just within life that will connect you to people. There could be different things that have been shared traumas within families, different things that's happened with relationships, uh, um, huge changes, which could be career, education, lots of different things that'll tie you to people and make you develop love and feeling for people. But then aside from some of the things that happened in your life that will connect you, aside from that, anything substantial, meaningful, or that would actually be challenging and supportive in a positive way, those things can tend to be void, and yet we'll still hold on to those spaces. I'm curious. I kind of have my own idea as to why when I was younger in those spaces I did, but when I see it happening and it's with more mature folk, that's always a moment that makes me kind of think, why that is. And I want to say for anybody watching, if you guys want to come up and join us live on stage, there's a link there that you can follow to come and join us if you want to do that. But what do you think about that? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I would ask you, is it seeing it happen with more mature people or seeing it happen with older people?
Okay.
Age, not maturity.
I'll say age. I'm sorry, I phrased that wrong. The age, because a lot of people will take and attach the word maturity because someone is a certain age, and just because you've lived a certain amount of time on the planet doesn't necessarily mean that you're at a space of maturity that is in alignment with your age. So yeah, I would say just older people.
Well, really quick, Gina chimed in. She said, yes, definition of a friend is totally different the older we get. And then she says also, maybe not definition, but the value. Oh, the value of a friend is totally different, because I think you're right, Taralyn. In that lost decade, and even before it, I can go all the way back to elementary school, being a person who was very independent, but also very inviting for friendships and relationships as a child.
Yeah.
You are seeking in the beginning of your life. I feel like you're seeking alliances. Who can I ally myself with? If I have 6 of us and there's a bully on the playground, he's probably not going to come mess with the 6 of us. He might mess with me individually and then get beat up and then not mess with me ever again. But he might mess with me individually or with a person individually. But as you get numbers, you gain influence and power. And so I think that a lot of those decisions that we make in the early years of our life, and early can be all the way up, I'm going to say, to about 30 years old. And in that early period in our life, we are trying to build those alliances. I even think about from the perspective of the jobs that I've gotten. over the
Mm-hmm.
course of my career, a lot of those jobs have been because of who I knew. And it's not
Yep.
that I don't have a skill set, and I have a skill set that
Right.
keeps the job, but the information about the job being available, being able to apply to the job, what to do, and all those different things, that was because of who I knew. And,
Right.
and those alliances that I built in those first 3 decades. But then
Mm-hmm.
once you have those alliances, then you kind of have the ability to be a little more picky about the alliances that you want to either continue from those first 3 decades or the new alliances that you want to foster. I think that for some of us, the connection with the reality of loneliness plays
Mm.
a significant role in the relationships that we know we shouldn't hold on to. That we
Mm-hmm.
know, not that, oh, maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't. No, 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 no. That we know we should not be holding on to. I think that reality of I'm going to be all alone or I can't afford to lose too many people because my circle's already too small. Look, as my wife and I say, I'm willing to go down to a dot. Me. That I'm willing for it to be just me and to build from the ground up all over again if every single relationship that I have is hazardous to me. You
And
gotta have, I was just gonna say, you gotta have the courage to do that.
that when you said that, that's makes puts into perspective fillers. Because like you say, people who can say, I know that this is no good. I know I need to get rid of this person, but there's something that keeps them from doing that. I think the loneliness factor is it, but then also too, not really being ready to be responsible for what that space would be like if you had to fill it for yourself.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's people sometimes bring to a situation. Well, I'm not going to say sometimes. All of us bring to our relationships a certain level of responsibility for the person who's receiving us. All right.
Right.
And that doesn't have to be a negative thing. I mean, you in our friendship, I know that I have a responsibility to be someone who is going to me and you have always been straight up. I'm always going to be straight up with you. I'm always going to be supportive. It's good for me. I like to be accessible and to know what's going on with you and to feel like I'm a resource for you because I know that that's something that we exchange. That responsibility is something that I decide, not just with you, with all of my friends to take on, but getting to a space where I feel as though I'm available and capable to shoulder not only that the responsibility of someone else, but to fill in that space for what they may need on their side of the relationship. You have to be at a certain space within yourself to even know that you're capable of doing that. And I think that a lot of the times when you have fillers, you're never put in a position to have to push yourself to grow, to push yourself to see what are some things that you may do, what would be some different ways in which you might have to make some concessions, compensate for some different things within yourself, grow. It also, when you remove the fillers, you really have some quiet space to learn some things about yourself that you really didn't have the opportunity to pay attention to because you were distracted by spaces being filled in your life. And so removing those distractions and really having the courage to know thyself, good, bad, or indifferent. I think that that's a lot of the situation too. So, yeah, really, really good points.
Yeah, I agree with that. We do have a question from Patsy Diane Smith, and it's funny because
Hey,
she actually
Patsy.
has a typo. She says, what about if you always see the hood in the person?" And she actually meant the word "good" because she corrected it over here. But sometimes you might see the hood, sometimes
I
you
was
might
about
see the
to
good.
say that question could go either way.
It depends. Um, but I think that it is possible to see the good in a person and still realize that they are not meant to be around you. Um, a very good example of this was I worked for a person at one point in my life, and they were a horrible boss. In my opinion, they were a horrible boss. However, I could still see some of the good characteristics that that person had. And I remember at one point somebody had called me and asked me, if this person was a racist. Now, they
Mm.
were a horrible boss. How easy it'd be like, yeah, yeah, they're racist. They don't like black people. They don't like red people. They don't like any color that's not them. It would
Right.
be easy to say that. But once I got clarification on why they were asking, I was like, oh no, that's just their personality. That's their characteristics, which
Mhm.
make them a horrible boss. However,
Mhm.
I've seen them do some of the most compassionate things when it comes to giving to others. So I can recognize that there's good in that person. However, recognizing that there's good in that person does not mean that that person needs to be around me. It's just like ice cream. Ice cream is delicious. However, that's not the only food that you need around you, because ice cream is also fattening. And if you consume too much of it, you'll have the same challenges of heart disease that you would if you were just eating French fries. So it's like being able to identify that something is good doesn't mean that it's for you. And that's a challenge that I had with women for a very long time. Being able to realize that a relationship like Taralyn and I's is good and great to be in doesn't mean that that's the relationship that I need to take to the next level. It means that it's the friendship that I need to take to the next level, but it doesn't mean it needs to become intimate, romantically involved, or anything in that regard. So again, seeing the good in somebody, is only a part of the story. It's really about defining if that good is meant to be involved in your life or to be brought into your inner circle or sanctum. Um, that's where the decision needs to be made. I can see the good in people all day, but guess what? At the end of the day, if that good is not more than the negative that that person is going to bring to my life, hey, you keep you and your good across the street. I'll love you from over here. What
I
about you,
think
Carol? What do you think?
I think I want to add to that that I agree with you with what you just said, and then I also want to add there's another perspective to that. I had a client who had some challenge with this, seeing the good in people, and once we started to this person, a lot of their challenge was they always saw the good, and because they always saw the good, they couldn't see the reality of what was not so good with the person, and so we had to deal with the question of are you when you're seeing the good in people completely and totally negating that no person is all good or all bad. There are many facets to all of us. Your choice to completely and totally negate the totality of what a person could be, is that really about them, or are you giving to someone something that you want for yourself when people view you?
Mm,
Does everybody need to be good in your sight because you want to be good in everyone else's sight? Is that what that is? And once we started to really dig deep with that person, that's what it was. That person saw in people what she wanted people to see in her, which was unrealistic, because just because you're not perfect doesn't mean that you're bad. But with the labels good and bad, then in some people's minds, that's a box in which they create it's either black or white. It can't be
right,
that you made a decision that's unfavorable and bad doesn't even factor into it. It was just a bad decision. Didn't
right,
kill anybody, nobody died from it. It's not like it was criminal, but she was stuck in this good and bad, black and white type of thing. And so anytime she made a mistake, then it had to be bad. So then if you're dealing with someone and they do something that falls short of perfection, because that's what that would mean. That would mean that you'd have to be perfect all the time. So if you're dealing with someone that falls short and they're not perfect, then it was just so hard for her to admit that maybe that was bad, or maybe that was off, or maybe that just wasn't something that was tasteful. She couldn't even go there because in the back of her mind, in saying that to them, it's like saying that that's true about her. And so we had to go through the fact that your way of thinking is not necessarily true. It's flawed. That's number one,
right.
but that's another thing to her point with that. I think that it is okay to acknowledge that people are not perfect. That doesn't make the people necessarily throwaways in the context of what you were speaking of, Billy. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily someone that needs to occupy a slot in your life in terms of a relationship. But just because they don't occupy that slot in a close relationship doesn't mean that that's still not a person that you wouldn't have communication with, contact with. It just would be where they would be on the outside of the circle. They wouldn't be on the
Right.
inside of the circle. But I think that it's important to understand that you don't have to negate the totality of who a person could possibly be. They don't have to be necessarily someone that you see as all good, for you to just be real about who they are and decide if they should fit into your life or not.
Right. No, I agree. Really quick, let's catch up the comments because last
Yeah.
week we ran out of time for comments.
Yeah.
Gina says, in regards to Taralyn's comment, if I was in my 20s and my friend told me my outfit didn't look good on me or fit right, I would be mad and ready to fight. LOL. Now at
Yeah.
40, someone that tells me that is what I look. Someone that tells me that is what I look for. Someone that is open and honest. Anna, I think it's supposed to be Anne, and
Mhm.
knows they have my best interest. They have my best interest, and that's all there is to that. Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
and that's what's supposed to happen as we mature, not as
Yep.
we age, as we mature.
Right. Absolutely. I agree.
Patsy, don't be texting while you're driving. Don't. Oh, talk to text. Okay, you're okay with
Oh,
talk to
okay.
text. I was
Okay.
like, don't be texting. Well, I don't know how your G's and your H's sound the same, but okay. Key says, I have a relationship that doesn't add value to my life, but found it difficult to remove myself from it because of the history. Ooh,
Yep.
with that person. And because of his current circumstances, he couldn't add value to, I'm sorry, it continues, value to our friendship. But still, there is something that is telling me to end it, and another voice that says, not while the person is down. Taryn, I'm going to let you take that.
Well, I think that it's not what you do, it's the way you do it. Now Billy knows this about me. Some people may not know this, but because I'm a woman very big on spirit, I think that when we have those things on the inside of us that's saying move, I do believe that that is God talking, that is your creator. And at the end of the day, if the relationship is not of value, timing and waiting to see the person up or down, life is always up or down. There's never going to be a good time. But I think that when it comes to you progressing spiritually and elevating spiritually, and any time that, and the only reason why I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective is because that's something within. That's what that something is. And in my life experience, when I don't trust that voice from within, it's always catastrophic. So I always say honor and trust yourself, and you do what's right for you in that moment, because anytime that's a voice coming from within, that voice sees some things over the horizon that you don't see. The fact that you've had a long-standing relationship with this person over the course of years, and this is not the first time that you had that feeling. I think that now is the time that you're meant to move, and you'll understand the reasons why. But the same God that protects you, the same voice that speaks from within that guides you, guides this person as well. You could be putting off what's better for you for a person who doesn't even acknowledge or listen to their own voice from within, which is the reason why they're in the situation that they're in. That's not anything that you would have the answer to. But at the end of the day, honor your voice from within and you'll always be okay. We can't shoulder other people's spaces and places in their life all the time, especially when that voice from within is telling us that that's not a burden that we're meant to carry with that particular person in our life. That's how I feel about that.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm a lot on that track. The first question that I would ask of myself if I was in this situation, and I would probably recommend for you to ask of yourself, Key, is why are you struggling to trust yourself? Because I
Yes.
am very much with Taralyn, is that I feel like we inherently know when things are not right.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot think off of the top of my head of a time where I did something that was wrong and didn't know inherently that it was wrong. And so I ask, why are you struggling to trust yourself? Because the I know that I feel like it's time to end voice, and then this what is it, the like the frosted mini wheat, but the kid in me makes me want to say, but there's history. um
I think
but
about that song every time I want to leave. Something keep pulling me back, me back. Every time I want to go, something keep telling me that. No, everything ain't gonna be all right, Key.
Right. That's where it's at. It's like just being able to trust yourself. There have been friendships that I've had to walk away from. There's been times where people have come to me and told me they didn't want to be my friend anymore. And there are aspects of that friendship that I had to say, hey, this is a non-negotiable. One of my biggest non-negotiables is if you don't want to be my friend, we're not friends. That's not negotiable. I can't make you want to be my friend. Well, if I do this and this and this and this, at the end of the day, you're still going to arrive back at that paradigm or that crossroad of I don't want to be Billy's friend.
Right.
And you're probably going to continue to arrive back at this because you now know a truth of this relationship needs to come to the end. The problem is you're looking for the right time for it to come to it. Well, I don't want to do it while they're down. Well, I don't want to do it while it's this. I don't want to do it while things are funky. I don't want to do it while something's going good. You're looking for the wrong entry point into the decision to be made. The entry point for the decision to be made was the moment you started questioning, should I be in this friendship anymore? It doesn't add value to me. It's pulling me in the wrong direction. Yeah, I get it, especially the hood that we grew up in. We want to be solid. We want to be day ones. We want to be people who like, hey, I never gave up on you.
Yeah.
But I cannot not give up on you at the expense of me.
Yep.
Because that just drags us both down.
And also, too, I want to add to this how we think that making a decision that is best for us is actually giving up on somebody. Do you know how many times in our life we could be holding someone else back because we won't remove ourselves from the slot that they put us in their life? Now, it doesn't work for us anyway, and we know this, and we have a reason why we're holding on. Sometimes letting go is not only for you, but it's for the person who you're attached to. There's something that's meant to fill that slot for them. You could be the one thing that's standing in the way of God elevating that person because you won't move, you know? So it's not just about you. Sometimes in allowing yourself to trust your truth, you are not only freeing yourself and elevating yourself, putting yourself in a position so that you can be elevated, but you're also creating a space for that person to have some things that maybe they're struggling with. It could just be that their opening needed to be created for something else. You could actually be freeing up a space that's going to help to elevate them as well. We just don't know. But that's the reason why when you hear people in terms of spirituality use the word obedience, this is a great example of that. Learning to be obedient to that inner voice within yourself and trusting it, not having all the answers, thinking that there could be something else that you could do, having your doubts, being afraid, having a sense of loyalty, having obedience to that voice within yourself and trusting it is bigger than any of the unknowns, because in trusting that voice, that's what makes the unknown eventually become something that is known. And you understand what it's about. But if you never trust yourself to take that step, then that's never going to be revealed.
Yeah. And, it's almost like having, I don't know the term I want to use, but like if you had a garden and you were growing tomatoes and for some reason your tomatoes weren't growing properly, but then you find out underground there's this weed structure that is really sapping the nutrients from the tomato plant and all around the tomato plant.
Yeah.
Sometimes what will happen is we keep these, I'm going to call them expired relationships, because the history that you're holding on to is obviously not a bad history, because if it was a bad history, be like, look, it's been bad from the jump, I'm done. But it's a good history. And it's like, I grew up with this person, or, I have love for this person, whatever it may be. And we hold on to that. And then when that history is underground, and it's like, oh, okay, great. We have this thing that we can rely on because it's solid. And then unfortunately your tomato plant doesn't grow right as you're trying to progress in life and maybe you decided you no longer want to grow tomatoes and now you want to grow strawberries, but your tomato plant roots are still there sucking all the nutrients, so you don't get tomatoes or strawberries. And we wonder why we get pulled back into these cycles. Like, if things are down for this person right now, we get pulled into that because we haven't trusted ourselves to sever the connection. Yeah. And I always say history is very, very tricky because it plays a significant part in what we deem to be important relationships. But again, those relationships might have been important for a time. I actually had a former friend who had reached out to me here in Utah. They were asking, hey, I'm going to be starting a job out there. I want to come and see if I can live with you for a couple of months, so on and so forth. But I hadn't spoken to this person for 8 years. And the history before 8 years has been incredible. Like a lot of who I am today, this person has absolutely helped, because was definitely one of the catalysts in who I am today. Absolutely, hands down. Nothing that I really in that point of my life that I wouldn't do for this person. However, an 8 years absence in my life, like my youngest son is 8 years old.
Yeah.
You never met my son, and we're supposed to be friends. And you're calling me 8 years later saying, can I come and live with you for a short-term period, in which you're only making this call because you are relying on history. You're not relying on anything in the present.
Absolutely.
And at first I was just like, no. And I didn't explain it. And in having a conversation with my best friend.
That sounds about right. That sounds like you.
Yeah, like, no, I don't have to explain it. But in having a conversation with my best friend, she was like, you really kind of should explain why you're at where you're at. And so I went back to the person, and this is where I think history does play a part, because if there was no history, I'm not going back to explain why I said no. I said no. I said what I said, kick rocks. But because of the history, I'm going to honor and give you this opportunity to grow individually on your journey away from me. And it was like, who I was when people were able to come in and out of my life in an 8-year gap. I'm no longer that person. You're now going to have to be present in my life if you want to be a part of my life. And that doesn't mean we have to talk every day. That honestly doesn't mean we have to talk every year. There's one person I only call once a year. Hey, just checking up on you annually, seeing if there's anything to catch up on. Nothing to catch up on. This is what I've been up to. Okay, great. Call you on your birthday. Happy birthday. And that's the only times that we talk in the year.
Yeah.
But that is the nature of that relationship. But there's not, oh, by the way, 8 years later, happy birthday, and I need something from you. Yeah, I need something from you. No, that's not how that works. But history is tricky like that, because it will make you feel like you owe somebody something. And I think I did this on a Wednesday Word last week or the week before last, when I was talking about the harvest, how a lot of people want to plant one seed, reap one harvest, and live off of that harvest for the entirety of their lives. Yes. And that's how relationships are. Yeah, our history is great. You may have planted a bunch of seeds, but you've already reaped those harvests from that relationship in the history of the relationship. You haven't, if you don't have anything of value to add to I'm not talking monetarily, but if you don't have anything of value to offer me, to help me grow, to help me thrive, to help me strive for something better, then that means you ain't got no seeds. So you can't plant anything new into this relationship. Thus, the relationship is not going to produce any harvest for you to reap. So it's a dead relationship. And just like when you have a dead tree, you uproot it and take it out so it doesn't fall on your house and destroy the house that you had built on the property. I'm sorry, but that's where I'm at with that. I'm done on that.
No, but I get it 100%. I think that even history, you have to put it into context. All right. There are so many things, just even throughout the history of this country, they're great reference points, but they're not necessarily things from history that you want to practically apply and try to relive now, And so I think about relationships in that way. And actually I had to grow to start to think about relationships in that way. And that's what stopped me from feeling a sense of guilt. And like I had a responsibility because of what used to be, for that to dictate my behavior today. Those things, the things that used to be, those are reference points, And when I take a look at those different reference points, it puts into perspective who that person has been to me, what has been, the ways in which, who they have been, the experiences that we've had, how those have been. That shapes how we're connected today. But then I still have to factor in from that reference point, all right, the present. Okay. So with all of that being said, that I can use as a reference point, let's get to right now. And based on where we are right now, how would the decision that I make serve the current, factoring into the information that I have from the previous reference points. And when you put it
Hmm.
into that perspective and add that context, makes it a little bit easier to sift through the emotion, to sift through the past memories and get to the bottom line, which is where you are right now. And so we don't want to treat things that we've had in the past, those past reference points, and there could be many of them, especially if your relationship goes back 10, 15, 20 years. Think about
Right.
how many reference points you have within that point in time and progressive throughout that, right? So we don't want to take and have a moment of now that we're living in and get stuck in reference points that have passed, people who have changed, because all throughout those different periods in time, we've both grown and changed in many different ways. Although there's an emotional connection and attachment to the past, we're different people from 10 years ago than what we are today. And what is an incident like, for example, I'm just throwing this out there. Let's say I was there when your parent died 15 years ago. What does that have to do with the fact that you want to bring your wife and 9 kids to live with me today and you ain't worked in 5 years? What does that have to do with
Right.
anything? The fact that I was there when
Right.
your daddy died. That's a reference point. you know? So I,
Hmm.
I think that that's the thing, to be able to put into context how we feel, put into context what that history means, but always, always, always trust ourselves and make our decision based on what's real for the present.
So I got a question for you, Taralyn.
Oh, you always do.
Because you asked about what keeps the relationship there. Like,
Yeah.
what are the things for me? And I told you the truth for me is something that I gotta have a relationship where I'm truthful.
Mhm.
But when it comes to identifying these relationships that are hazardous,
Mhm.
or occupational hazards, what are some of the characteristics that we can find? And I'm going to say characteristics and or symptoms that we can identify, maybe are easier identified at the surface level, that would actually cause us to do some of the deep dive work and really begin to assess the relationships that we have.
Do that question for me one more time.
So when it comes to these occupational hazard relationships, the ones that we need to let go because they
Mhm.
serve little to no value, what
Mhm.
are some of the symptoms that we can see at the surface level that are really easy to identify that would
Okay.
cause us to dig deeper down to the meat and potatoes of what the true issue is and why we might need to let a relationship go?
I think that one of the most easily identifiable things is reciprocity. Relationship
Shoot, ooh,
has
I
to
almost
be
cussed.
Mama say, Mama saw, Mama makusa.
Ooh,
Look at
my
you.
bad.
I would say reciprocity. There are one of the things that is a telltale sign that a relationship is an occupational hazard is if it's just one way. If you're always on the side of giving and never on the side of receiving, and receiving substantially, because some people will just throw anything at you, like the new shirt. There you go, styling and profiling again.
Yeah,
Pumpkin color.
wrinkled, but I'm still on the Harvest Festival.
That's it. But I think that if you're in a relationship and it's one-sided, and even if someone is giving something but it's not of the same value, the caliber of what you're putting out, that right there, I think, is the number one telltale sign that that relationship is an occupational hazard. So I would say reciprocity would be number one. I think that the ability for someone to be able to be reliable, someone being reliable in a relationship is so very important, because you have so many different things that we go through. But if you have somebody that you cannot rely on, there's no reciprocity, you really can't say that when I get in the trenches, there's a way for me to get this person. I know that if anything were to happen and something were to come up and you needed somebody to call to be Johnny on the spot, you can call me and I'm gonna pick up. I don't usually even pick up in the middle of the night, but because of the type of relationship that we have, I would be available because we have that type of relationship. And I know that I know I have that type of relationship with you. So the reciprocity, reliability, and then going back to one of the things that you said earlier, I'm going to say with honesty, transparency. That's huge. If you have someone who's supposed to occupy a meaningful space within your life, but you still feel as though there's areas of them where you don't have access. And let me put that into context. I'm not saying like Billy has a wife. I shouldn't have the same kind of access that his wife has. That goes without saying. But I'm saying that you shouldn't feel as though in a relationship that's one that you claim is significant, that you don't truly know the person, that you don't feel as though you really understand them because maybe there were walls or things up that you don't have access to. Those are some indications that, and to me, that those blind spots kind of goes with the reciprocity, because people who don't have the reciprocity, there are some missing pieces that you can't seem to make sense of a lot of the times. So I think that all of those things go together. So those would be my top three.
I don't got nothing better than reciprocity, because again, it almost made me cuss. So
that's huge.
I'm for, and it's not even that you have to do it in the way in which I do it. It's that it's just that the heart and the compassion behind how you do it, that has to match. Doesn't have to be the same thing, but that heart and that compassion behind it has to be the same. It's no different than I used to have a friend. We would go to the movie theater together, and I'd go and we'd go and I'd pay, and we'd go and he'd pay, and we'd go and I'd pay, and we'd go and he'd pay, and we'd go and he'd pay, and then we'd go and I'd pay, and we were not keeping track. I'd be like, who paid for the last movie? I don't know. I got this one.
Right.
But that was the nature of our friendship. That was the nature of our relationship, is that we had each other's back.
Right.
And he's one of those people who, again, the history, he was there when I went through my first divorce. And I mean, I was depressed. I was suicidal. I was just everything. I was an emotional nightmare / wreck. And there was a space in our life where we had lost our closeness. And I had to make that decision on, do I want to reinvest in this friendship? Do I want to reinvest in this relationship? And I did make the decision to reinvest in it, not because of the fact that he was there when I was in a divorce, but because he was still growing and he was still striving to be a better person. Like, it was like, I can't even remember, at one point he had a great job. I mean, was making, I guess, a great career opportunity. And he was like, I'm going to go ahead and go back to school. And then he moved out of the state and was gone. And while he was doing that growth and while he was going through that process, he'd come back and visit, but we sometimes couldn't connect, or we didn't really connect as much as we were connecting. But now this is like one of my brothers. He's one of the people that if I am struggling with something, I'm like, hey, look, I just kind of need a little bit of advice. I'm one of the people that if he's struggling with something, hey, Ro, this is what's going on. I just wanted to let you know. And, you know, and we have those deeper level conversations. So that reciprocity, man, that hit me in the core on one of the tools that people need to take away from tonight's conversation.
Also very necessary. Yeah.
Can you do me a favor and catch us up in the comments?
Yeah. Where we at?
We are at. I love that. Right here. I love that.
Oh, here we go. I love that. I love that. I cannot give up on. Wait, I cannot give on you at the expense of myself.
It's a double negative. Cannot not.
See, why you flip that, Billy? And y'all forgive me, honey. This 8-point font is killing me. Yes, be obedient to your spirit and trust yourself. I know what I need to do. You both are right. I'm sitting here just trying to be a solid one, a real one, but pump faking myself out of guilt. Oh yeah. You know what? He's pump faking himself, right? You know what? But that's right. The key, because I could just see him. Nope, not no. That's good. Billy and I are very visual, so we with you on that key. But you know what, Key? that is so true. It is the guilt part, and we have to understand that guilt part will keep us trapped, because really there's nothing to feel guilty about. Think about the mindset that we have. We've been socialized to believe that if we choose ourselves, then that's bad. Because why
Hmm.
else would you feel guilty about that? Yes, that person has some things that they're going through, but the fact that this is even on the table for you, well, you have some things that you're going through too. Guess what? We're all going through things. So at the end of the day, no matter what you choose, you and him are both going to be going through something.
Right.
That doesn't change. So we have to stop feeling guilt for putting our best interest first. We don't owe anyone else to be their martyr or their sacrificial lamb, if you will. And many of us have spent a lot of time doing that. This is a human condition. All of these things that we talk about, we can put different names on them. We can make it Taralyn, we can make it Key, we can make it Billy, we can make it Jennifer, we can make it anybody. But at the end of the day, these things are a human condition, and they exist for all of us because it's all about that refinement process and getting to the best versions of ourselves that we could possibly be. So without these different things, without the emotion attached, without the inconvenience, without the challenge that it will be to actually choose yourself and then have to see that person again after that, without those different things, then I'm right, because you're gonna see him, he gonna be looking like you're gonna be wondering, is he thinking about that? Yeah, he is, but it's okay, he'll be all right.
Right.
It'll be okay. But if we didn't have these situations where we had to face these things, then how will we ever become refined and gather the skill set, um, the spiritual bandwidth, if you will? How would we acquire the tools that we need in our spiritual mindset chest and in our skill set that we need for life if we were not challenged with these things, had to make these decisions, stand on them, and experience the victory on the other side when we trust ourselves? Because that's the thing, Key, that I want you to experience, the payoff for trusting
Hmm.
yourself. Once you get used to that, you like, hey, only simps pump fake to the other side. They ain't gonna do
Right.
that. They're gonna. So it's definitely worth it. Just try it. Try it. You'll see.
Right. Shooting shots at a rim that ain't even there. Yep. 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 Yep.
That part.
Um, so I just put the coach's tools up: the reciprocity,
You should
reliability,
have.
and transparency,
Oh
because
yeah.
those are all key elements. But we are almost at time
Mhm.
for the conversation. Dang, that time goes so fast.
It goes by so
So
fast.
I'm. I guess we'll go with final thoughts. So what's your final thoughts on that, on this particular
Well,
topic?
I don't have anything further. I think I said what I got. But before I let you do your final, then we have to tell them about what's coming up. Even on the 14th before we get to the 26th. But all right.
Right, right. You want to? Well, go ahead. You go ahead and tell them. You go ahead and tell them.
Okay, so what's coming up is Jose Soto, who is not here tonight.
I
Even though
know, ain't that crazy?
it would be tonight. So we're going to start doing panel discussions, and our first one is going to be live on the 14th. We're going to be following up on our conversation about traumatic suppression. It was a live one. It was really good, and we're going to have with us our first panel guest. She's going to be Keisha LaLuz Carter. She is a survivor of stage 3 cervical cancer, and if anybody could speak to traumatic suppression, it would be her. You guys, you are not going to want to miss this panel discussion. But listen, we are just getting started when it comes to that. I don't even think you have one to
Ooh,
put
yeah.
up for this, but I got to go ahead and trail it. I'm going to mention this a couple of times. Uh, we we finish out the pilot season, the first season of Taralyn Michelle and Billy Wroe. That's going to close out on the 28th of June this month. But then when we come back on July 26th, y'all, it is going to be so lit. We are having a relationship discussion with the panel that is out of this world. And what are we going to be talking about? We are going to be talking about men, because we love them, but we want answers. We want to know, why is it that men will lead with sex in relationships and give the woman what they think that she wants, all while withholding that they actually want a substantial connection and a woman of their own on the side. They'll slide into women and slide right out and then be like, but there's no good women out there. We want to talk about this. We want to talk about why this is. Watch your face, Billy. Watch.
I'm trying to hold my mouth and everything.
Watch your face. I ain't got time for you. But anyway, we're so excited about this panel that's going to be coming up on the 26th. It is going to be lit, and you are going to want to be here because you'll be able to come up live on stage and ask questions as usual. And if we have space, we might even go ahead and slide you through for a brief spot. Questions, I'm thinking, I'm not going to put time frames. Anyway, I ain't going to even go that far. I'm not going to put my because Billy looking like, what you saying? Where you going? What you saying? I'm not.
Hey,
I'm done.
I trust you. You said whatever you want to say.
But it's going to be an exciting conversation. We have some very opinionated people that are going to be here, and we're looking forward to you guys being a part of that. So don't miss Traumatic Suppression. That's going to be on the 14th of this month. And then we're going to be dropping season 2 with a bang on July 26th. Any final thoughts, my friend?
Final thought is don't be afraid to choose you. At the end of the day, when we are holding on to these relationships that offer very little to nil value in our life, it is a space that we are in where we are, for some reason, not choosing ourselves.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's the childhood mentality of don't be selfish. You have to share all these things that we're taught to give without expectation of receiving. But that's why reciprocity really resonates with me, because when it comes to the relationships that we're choosing to have in our lives, that's a choice. And if that choice doesn't serve us, we can, not only can we, it is 100% okay to make a different choice and to choose yourself. So that'd be my final and my closing thought on that.
Always. Well, you know what, guys? You cannot forget to sit on the first row tomorrow. The Wednesday Word is coming up tomorrow. You don't want to miss that. What's tomorrow about, Billy?
The Echo Chamber.
Ooh, can't miss that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So y'all got to check out the Wednesday Word tomorrow. It's going to be 6:30 Pacific Standard Time, 9:30 Eastern. And then also, you got to go to firstrow.com. You have to check out Fire Your Job. Shut up, Billy. I'm tired of you. Fire Your Job.
Is that the title of the book? Fire Your Job. Shut up, Billy.
I ain't got time. I'm not doing this with you. I'm just trying to do my job. Fire your job, hire your passion. Firstrow.com, national bestseller. First book out the gate. I'm done with him. After the night until Tuesday, I'm done with him. You got to go to firstrow.com. You have to pick the book up. And if you haven't already, check it out. You get the first chapter complimentary. You won't be able to put it down after that. But then you have to check me out every Friday, the Grind to Find podcast. Check it out on the grindtofind.com. Syndicated, so I'm on every major platform. Some radio stations here or there. Fresh content every Friday, in addition to some other things. You're going to want to be following me there to make sure that you're updated when I upload. And definitely check me out on taralynmichelle.com for coaching services, as well as any projects that you may have, a professional ghostwriter, to get your story from the crevices on your mind out into the world. In the meantime, and between time, people, go out into the world owning it. Why? It's already written, y'all. It's one and done. Until the next time, see you next Tuesday on Taralyn Michelle and Billy Wroe Live. Peace.
Peace.